Welcome to the Dom Sub Devotion Podcast.
Every episode of Dom Sub Devotion shares the lessons learned from our experience of love, devotion, and desire inside of our 24/7 Dom Sub marriage.
We found that dominance and submission is more than just a kink. For us, it's been a path to deep intimacy and desire that lasts over the long term. We share our experience through this podcast to be the example that we didn't have when we started down this path, and to help you find your way to a dynamic that works in your real life.
You can learn more about us and our courses and offerings in the show notes and at infinitedevotion.com. Thank you for listening.
Welcome to Dom Sub Devotion. My name is Andrew, and I am a 24/7 dominant in a relationship with my wife. And as of the recording of this podcast, almost 7 years ago, I asked my wife to become my submissive. And over those last 7 years, it has been a continual evolution of growth and learning for me as a man to learn how to step into the kind of dominance that I really wanted to embody, and to really make possible the kind of submission that I was looking for out of her. And one of the things that I've had to learn is what I'm going to teach about in today's episode. And that is the idea that dominance does not have to come from force. The real dominance that we are looking for as men, generally, when we're looking for a woman to submit to us, is a submission that she feels, not one that she's playing, not one that she's acting out. But there's such a mental framework that we have as men around the idea of dominance being forceful. And it brings me to this idea of David Goggins. If you know him, he has books like Can't Hurt Me. His kind of catchphrase is stay hard. And that's this idea that in order to be manly, to be masculine, you have to be hard, you have to be forceful, you have to be able to jam your way through life to make things happen the way that you want them to happen. And what I'm going to share with you today is about how we can be dominant as men using presence rather than force. So I want you to just get this picture in your head of two different types or stereotypes of dominant men. The first one is the stay hard guy. He's barking orders. He's reacting when he's challenged. He's fighting back against challenges. And when someone resists his leadership, he tightens control. The other is a man who walks into a room, and his woman, the people around him, just immediately soften, look to him. Not because of anything that he's doing, but because of who he is. And what I want to help you with here today in this episode is how to become that second kind of man. How that kind of presence can become the dominant force in your life. Because if she's only submitting to you because you're pushing or because you're forcing or because you are gripping onto control, she's not really submitting, she's complying. Compliance can be fun. It can be a part of the way that you play, but it is not a way to live a life. But compliance also can't be the entire framework of what dominance and submission is built on. Because when she no longer fears the consequences, when your forcefulness as a man is no longer the thing that is requiring her compliance, that goes away. Men think that we need to make her submit. And a lot of women will tell us and feel as though she wants to be made to submit. Things like tone and pressure, leverage. But when your dominance is completely tied up in trying to control her behavior, what that's signaling to her on a subcontextual level is that you don't actually have control of yourself. You aren't okay unless she is doing what you want her to do. And when dominance and forcefulness is exerted from that internal place, you've already lost presence. You've already given her the evidence that she needs, that you can't hold yourself together without her cooperation. You need her submission to validate your dominance. So presence is the source of true embodied power for us as men who want to be in a dominant framework inside of ourselves. Because we have to be in that dominant framework inside of ourselves before we can ever have her feel submissive towards us for real. But presence is harder than force because it's about who you are. It's not just what you do. And in order to embody a real, solid, dominant presence, you have to be the kind of man whose energy is something that he owns, that isn't using her approval, someone else's validation. You can't shortcut your way to presence. You can shortcut your way to force, but force always collapses on itself. When we can be a dominant man in a way that comes from presence, we're showing her not just that we expect compliance, but we're showing her that she can let go of control because it feels safe to let go of control, not just because she got cornered or forced. So this dominance, this presence that I'm speaking of to you today, this isn't about getting her to do what you want. That is the easy part when you have mastered the hard part. The hard part is becoming the dominant man that she naturally lets go of control with. And so, for the guys who are looking for a trick or a shortcut, this podcast is not going to give it to you. You might as well just turn it off right now. This is going to give you something real, but this isn't something you can just pull out in a scene. This isn't something that you can just use in an argument or when she's trying to resist you somehow. You can't just pull this out of a bag. The kind of presence that I'm going to speak to here is cultivated every single day, in every interaction, in every part of your life, outside of the relationship especially, with her, without her. This is who you are. And this is about building the kind of presence as a man that builds unshakable trust. And that trust, that dissolves the fears that keep her from feeling a sense of really deep surrender, of actually letting go. So over this next hour, you're going to learn why presence creates deeper, more lasting surrender, submission than force ever can. You're going to learn how to cultivate this in yourself. You're going to learn why consistency is the secret to compounding trust over time, and how this trust will naturally allow her to bend towards you in every part of the relationship. And also, while I am speaking here today about presence versus force in dominant submissive relationships, the exact same skill set of building and living from a state of internal presence will impact every other area of your life. And if it doesn't, then it's not real. What we do in power exchange relationships, in romantic relationships, in intimate relationships, is not separate. People think that they need to keep the kink part of their life, of their relationship, in this separate container, in this other space, and then they have the rest of themselves. And you can't delineate parts of yourself and cut off other parts, not when you want something to be real. So this doesn't mean that you need to bring kink to work, but it means that the same kind of presence, the same kind of inner strength that allows you to really be where you are in the moments that you're there will both inspire and allow the surrender and submission that you want from women, and it will impact your life in every other area. So let's talk a little bit about the illusion of force. Force is really anything that tries to override your submissive's will through pressure, through fear, through manipulation, through reactivity, through any kind of emotional volatility that you might be feeling. And so force can look like raising your voice. Force can look like either threatening withdrawal of affection or an unconscious, what we might call an avoidant attachment style, which really isn't, it's just fear. It can look like punishing without real clear agreement. It can look like constantly correcting or micromanaging her life. And I want to point out that this isn't the same thing as consensual power play. Consensual power play, kink, something where you have agreed together that you're going to play in this realm of control and submission, of force, in a way that you've both agreed to, that's fun for both of you. That is a really good time. What I'm talking about here, when I'm talking about force, is about the need inside of the dominant to control your submissive's behavior in order to feel okay, in order to feel like you're in control. Because if you have to push her to get her to move, she's not following you. Her actions, her submission, if the only way that she's following you is through your force, her submission is nothing more than just escaping your pressure. You push here and she backs off. You push there and she backs off. She's not actually having a feeling of wanting to give herself to you. She's running away from you. And that can get a result in the moment, but over time it erodes trust. And that's what we have to understand about force, is she might begin to obey. Your submissive might follow, but it's coming from self-protection rather than desire. If it's coming as a result of forceful behavior on your part. And the only outcome to this is resentment, or having her guard up. And you're creating a framework in the relationship. If force is the framework from which you are exerting dominance, you're creating a framework where her submission is equal to a need to protect herself from you, or to run away from you, or to be reactive to you. It's not an active state of surrendering to you. It's a reactive state of trying to avoid upsetting you. Force can only beget fear. That's the only outcome. Now, sometimes this is where the turn on is. Force, fear, there can be excitement there. But if that's how you're living your life, you will end up creating a relationship where more and more distance is required in order for survival. You're pushing her away and calling it dominance. But generally, as men, like I mentioned this David Goggins thing, right? Stay hard. This is our perception of what it means to be strong, to be hard, to be hardened against life. And we default to force because generally, and we admire people like David Goggins as men because we lack the ability to self-regulate. Hardening yourself against the world around you is a reactive state. That is a submissive state. And it's the fastest way that we can think of when we feel out of control to try to regain control. So this stay hard, forceful mentality is really always insecurity. And that's tough to hear. It's tough to see in ourselves. But it's a fundamental misunderstanding of what it really means to have power. Because when the only way that we can conceptualize dominance, leadership is through force, we're thinking too small. We're thinking about dominance as controlling her actions. And when we are looking at this from a bigger picture, from a leadership perspective rather than a control and force perspective. You realize that power can actually be more about shaping the space in which she exists. And we'll also default to force as men out of impatience. We want immediate gratification. We want, like, she agreed to be my submissive and now she needs to submit to me. And that's the shortcut. It's impatience. It's a fear of not getting what you want. But if you can slow yourself down a little bit, you'll realize that you need to build a foundation that makes her compliance, her submission, her surrender natural. So if we tend to default to force because of these unconscious patterns, presence is the contrast or the other side of this. Because when we dominate with presence, there's no pushing required. We are the quiet, undeniable, gravitational pull of someone who's steady, someone who's certain, someone who's fully here, all the way here in the moment. And being able to be fully present, that communicates that you don't need her compliance in order to feel powerful. Being present implies that you already own your power. And that allows her to follow you because from that state, she will actually feel safer in submission to you than she will separate from you. And you may have heard me tell this story before, but this is the absolute best example that I've ever seen of this. It was a bouncer at a little beach restaurant that Dawn and I and her daughter were at together in Florida a few years ago. And this guy, as soon as I noticed him, there was such a gravitational pull to his energy that a guy who is 6'4", strong, fit, very capable, when I noticed him and I really tuned into him, I felt safer. I felt safer because he was there, just standing there looking around watching. He wasn't saying anything. He didn't need to. You could feel him. And that's what I'm talking about here. And that's the kind of presence that can only be cultivated. You can't fake. You cannot fake it because it's an energy that's underneath your actions. Force will focus on the behavior that you see in front of you. Presence will shape the entire space around you and cause the people around you to change their behavior naturally in response to your energy. And from that place, you don't have to force. You don't have to make her submit. She's already automatically in a state of submission. And this is why you may have heard me say before that a woman will naturally submit to a man who is dominant in himself. It's about presence. So let's talk about what presence really is. First and foremost, presence is the capacity to be fully here, fully in the moment, steady energy, clear focus, not in your head, not thinking about anything else, just really here. It's not a state of intensity. It's not a state of needing or trying to be intimidating. It's about being really grounded, aware, feeling unshakable, unfuckwithable. And real presence is felt before it's seen. It doesn't need to announce itself at all. Presence is not, it's not an act. It can't be any sort of an act. It can't be any sort of a pretending to be calm, like trying to act like you're not bothered when you are. It's not a rehearsed kind of dominant voice. It's not like a manufactured eye contact. There's no detachment in real presence. There's no emotional shutdown. There's no getting lost in your head. It's really deep engagement in the moment. And that requires a certain amount of an ability to be with whatever is. Real, true acceptance of the moment. So there are some physical markers, energetic markers of what presence really is. And you can practice these. And we'll get a little bit deeper into how we cultivate this presence. But this is a really excellent way to check yourself. Where are you really at? Is your breath slow? Can you really breathe deeply? Can you really regulate your breath? What's your posture like? Is it upright? Is it solid? Intentional movements. This is one of the most incredible ways to see and feel your own presence, is to really be intentional. You know, if you're watching this on camera, if you're watching this on YouTube, well, right before I started this episode, my microphone stand was loose and I had to tighten it up, so I have an Allen wrench here. So when you pick something up, do you really pick it up? Are you really with it? When you go to adjust something, are you paying attention closely to what you're doing? Or are you kind of there but also lost in your head and kind of zoned out? Intentional movements and stillness. Eye contact. Can you hold a steady, gentle eye contact with another person? Can you look at someone and just look at them? Speech. Someone who is in a state of presence is generally going to speak more slowly, with more measure. And they're going to pause at times in a way that gives weight to their words. But again, it's not a rehearsed act. This comes more from a state of considering what you are saying before it comes out of your mouth, so that you are being clear with your words. And clarity beyond that, just clarity of your energy, knowing what you want, knowing what you're doing before you do it, before you've said it. Getting clear within yourself before you act. So your actions are coming from something. There's something underneath them, rather than just haphazard movement and haphazard speech. And a woman will especially, again, this isn't just about women, but a woman especially will experience your presence. She'll feel safer, less guarded. Her nervous system is going to soften. She's going to be more receptive. Not because you demanded it, but just because she feels that way. And she will just start to yield to you without you needing to force or demand anything. Her submission starts in her body and how she feels around you before it shows up in her behavior. If her submission is coming from her behavior and not from how she feels in her body, then it's not as authentic and real as it could be. So presence as an approach to dominance works from a physiological standpoint rather than from an expectation standpoint. It works by allowing her body to soften. The human nervous system is going to co-regulate when there is a steady force for her to lean into. She can feel steady through you. And for most people, they're always bracing against their fears. You can go back to episode 99, 2 episodes ago, if you want to learn more about that. But most people, especially women, because they are energetically receptive in their body, they are always trying to control and prevent an uncertain future from harming them. And when we bring our dominance with presence, this is when genuine, authentic surrender really becomes possible. Because the moment that her body trusts you, then her entire system just wants to follow you. Now, presence isn't just something that we can use as a tactic. Like I said, it's not something that you can just learn how to do so you can pull it out for a certain moment, for a certain argument, for a certain scene. Presence without some sort of consistency is very fragile. Anyone can feel grounded and powerful and present for a few minutes when the conditions are ideal. But this is why we talk so much about devotion. It's why we named our business Infinite Devotion. This is about how you show up over time. How are you devoted to yourself and to showing up in the relationship? Because a woman is going to learn who you really are in those repeated moments, in those chaotic moments, in the patterns, in the way that you present yourself in the times that might feel crazy, chaotic, out of control. And one powerful moment of presence might inspire her. It might change her. It might completely shake the entire foundation of fear that she's built her entire identity on. But if that presence is just a game, inconsistency with it it'll erode any sort of feeling that she has about you if this is something that you put on and you use it like a game. She isn't going to trust the man that you can be one time. She trusts the man that you are every time. How do you consistently show up? Her body remembers every single grounded interaction, every time that you are fully present, that you're fully in the moment. And this doesn't just have to be in scenes. This doesn't just mean in arguments and disagreements. This means, how present are you at dinner? How present are you with your food? How present are you with her, with the conversation? How deeply are you listening? If you can always show up in presence, and again, you can't force yourself here, but if you can cultivate the capacity to be present when she's emotional, when she's challenging you, when she's testing, when things are easy, when things are hard, you're teaching her that she doesn't need to brace against the uncertainty of what version of you she's going to get in that moment. Once a woman feels what it feels like to be held in the presence of a man who has cultivated his own inner strength, anything less than that will now be revealed to her for what it is. She's probably spent most of her life around men who did not have this sense of presence. And so when she feels it and her whole system can relax, everything else is going to feel everything else is going to feel like it is lacking something. Our consistency with presence shows her that she doesn't need to be waiting for the other shoe to drop, for you to fall apart. That she can actually set down her control mechanisms, her fear. Every time that you can show up steady, You're showing her without having to say it. You don't have to prove it. You're being it. That you are going to be the same, regardless of how she shows up. And that allows her to start to feel for real. And this has a compounding effect over time. This builds on itself. When you come out of reactivity, especially if she's very used to interacting with you in reactivity, she's going to test you. She's going to poke you, usually unconsciously. But this presence, this dominant force that you can become as you cultivate presence, will feel so powerful to her, but it also will feel probably unsafe and uncertain. Because if she's never felt a man in his real presence before, you're showing her this, and the feeling she feels in her body, the relaxation, the unconscious relaxation that she will feel dangerous to her at first. She's going to have to learn to trust it. That's why you need to be consistent. So she's going to test it, not because she doesn't trust you, but because she doesn't trust herself to let go of control until she knows that this is real. Eventually she will start to yield to you preemptively and not need to test it anymore. But it takes time for her system to relax. Again, you have to be devoted to this. This is not a shortcut. You can't just make yourself present. Consistency will dissolve the resistance that she feels that's coming from fear. And almost every woman is carrying some sort of a subconscious fear and a belief structure that she's built from that because of how she was hurt by men, how she was hurt by you, by her father, past betrayals, inconsistency, volatility. If she's had to manage herself, take care of herself, be in control because she's been afraid to let go of control, she's obviously going to instinctively resist letting go of control. She's trying to keep herself safe. So building the kind of presence that is unwavering over the long term, I'm talking months, years. This is proving to her through experience that she doesn't need control to be safe. So when she resists, when a submissive woman resists the submission that she wants, it's not about you. It's a memory of everyone who couldn't hold her, handle her, or take care of her, protect her in the past. But this isn't just for her. It's really important to recognize that consistency in presence is about you, and it's for you. This is about developing the kind of endurance that allows you to be powerful without requiring force, and the ability to hold tension without needing resolution, without needing to get what you want right now. When you cultivate a real sense of presence, you now no longer live in a reactive state to her, to the world around you. You are leading from your own internal state. Presence isn't something that you give her. Your dominant presence is something you build in yourself until nothing can take it from you. It's something that other people feel in you because you own it for yourself. So you've heard me use this phrase a couple times about the gravitational pull. A planet isn't chasing its moon. The planet just exists. The sun, it exists in its mass. Things orbit whatever it is that has the highest gravitational pull, the highest mass. And so you don't need to go chasing after her when you build the kind of presence that allows and commands, in a way, the people around you to orient towards you and to orbit around you. When we haven't yet built this kind of presence, you'll notice yourself doing things like checking in or looking for reassurance, changing your tone or your behavior, being a different person in different situations, in different settings, with your woman, at work, in public, at the grocery store. Are you the same person, or are you putting on different faces? And when you've not yet fully developed a sense of your presence, you'll find yourself doing things like getting defensive, over-explaining yourself, rationalizing your behaviors. A dominant man who's in his presence doesn't adjust himself to keep anyone close or to get anyone's approval. If you are adjusting yourself to her moods, then you are orbiting her. And her energy is the thing that has the most mass. So to develop the kind of presence that allows you to be dominant in your energy, to have that gravitational pull, it means first and foremost that you are internally referenced. What do I mean when I say internally referenced? I mean that your decisions are based on what you want, knowing what you want, and not needing anyone else's approval or validation for you to have and be who you are and who you want to be. A man who has a deep sense of presence is never rushed. Slow, deliberate movements, living your life at your pace. A man who is hurried, who overschedules, overcommits himself, is never going to be in a state of presence. And another characteristic of a man who has this kind of presence is consistency. Again, the consistency with your presence will mean that people know where you stand. They don't have to ask or check in. No one's ever going to need to know how you're doing. It's your steadiness. That's the compass that she navigates by. Especially when she's lost, she will find her way back to herself through you. So let's talk a little bit about how you start to cultivate this kind of inner strength, this kind of presence. And before I go any further, I want to mention I built an entire course around this. If you're a man listening to this and you want to be able to bring this kind of dominant presence into your life, I created a course called Becoming a Dominant Man. And I built this course because I was doing a mastermind with a group of men a few years ago. And a couple of them said to me, it would be really helpful if you had some kind of a process, like a step-by-step. And from there, what I did is I went back and I looked at how did I grow into the man that I had become? What did I do first? How did I progress in a way that allowed me to keep making progress, but also to know how to reference myself, to check myself? And I built this process called the 12 Steps to Dominance out of what I had to do to become the man that I am and to be in a state of continuous improvement. Because I'm not the man who's got it all figured out. I'm not the man who's there, so to speak. But I am a man who's committed to always being my best and always getting better. And so this process that I built, that you can follow along with in the course Becoming a Dominant Man, you can start today. And you can work through this slowly. You can learn more about it in the show notes. And if what you're hearing here today about dominance through presence rather than force is something that appeals to you and something that you want to be able to give in relationship with submissive women, go check that course out. I have over 250 men that are a part of it, and it's growing by the day. I'd love to have you there. So let's talk a little bit about some of the practices, the ways that you can start to learn to cultivate this kind of a presence. Stillness before action. So before you respond, before you move, before you do something, pause. Find your stillness and move from there. Move with intention. Don't just kind of wander around aimlessly and do some stuff. Be fully in your body. Be fully present with what you're doing. And if you're not, pause. Orient yourself. Let the room orient to you, and then take one action. Single tasking. Presence is never going to work with multitasking. That's a scattered energy, and you can't be fully present with more than one thing at a time. Speak slowly. Notice what I did there? Speak slowly. Let silence do some of the work. When you speak slowly and you pause between your words, people have to wait to hear what you have to say. It also gives you the space to make sure that what's going to come out of your mouth is what you really want to say. When you're with your woman, use eye contact. In kink scenes, sometimes we'll play with things like leashes. We'll let your eye contact be the leash. Hold her with your eyes until she softens into you. Men, be deliberate with how you touch her. Don't rush your touch. Don't unconsciously just stroke her face or her arm. If you're going to touch her, put all of your energy, all of your attention into the part of your body with which you're going to touch her. Really let your hand feel her as you touch her. Touch her with intention. Be present with how you are placing your hand on her back, on her neck, on her shoulder. Be fully there with how you touch her. And if you're moving her body, guiding her through a door, move it with certainty. Move her with certainty. And the last little presence practice that I can give you here today is don't rescue her from discomfort too soon. If she's feeling uncomfortable, let her. And let her feel your steadiness. Let yourself notice your steadiness and come into your steadiness until she chooses to relax. Don't ever tell her to calm down or relax or tell her that she's safe. First, let her feel it first. A man who is dominating with presence rather than force doesn't ever need to pull her in. He becomes the kind of man that she can naturally move toward. So just imagine that she's upset. She's maybe talking fast, she's pacing, she's got a lot of nervous, anxious energy. The forceful dominant approach might tell her to come sit down and kneel for you. It might tell her to stop talking. It might talk over her. It might try to tell her where she's wrong or why she's overreacting to try to shut her up. But to dominate with presence, if she's feeling upset, anxious, stressed, sit still. breathe deeply. Look at her steadily. Listen to her. Allow her to feel what she's feeling. Eventually, she will notice and feel your steadiness. It might shake her. She might just burn out. But you will still be there when she's done, and she'll be able to soften into you. This takes time. This takes devotion. It takes consistency. But when you can become this gravitational force, you don't have to micromanage her submission. Her submission becomes natural. It becomes instinctual as a reaction to your energy. She will naturally yield to you because you have the inner strength that lets her feel safe enough to not need to do it herself. And over time, this will really change her. Not just her behavior, but the baseline way that she feels around you. And that's when her submission starts to feel real to you. So I gave you a few practices if you're a man who wants to cultivate this dominant presence. But let's talk a little bit more about that. Let's talk a little bit more about how you train yourself to be fully present. You have to think about this as self-mastery, because presence is our natural state. Being fully there is the most normal, natural thing in the world. So we don't have to look at how do I become more present. Generally, we have to look at why am I feeling so uncomfortable with being present? Why does it feel not okay for me to just be here? This is a process of self-mastery. And if it's anything less than that, it's a game, it's a performance, it's a tactic. And it's going to, over time, erode trust in the relationship because it erodes your trust in yourself. If you're playing it and then turning it off and then trying to pull it out as a way to get something, it's showing how fake you are. And the whole point of building a dominant presence is to be able to be fully real, to be able to be fully there. So this is about training your nervous system to be able to be relaxed and to let go of the things that you hold, the fears that you hold, the discomfort that you hold with reality. Needing things to be different in order for yourself to feel okay. So again, you can work on these daily practices to build presence. But the really important thing is, as you work on these practices, you're going to notice the times that you feel as though you can't. You can't stay in these places. You can't stay in this energy. And that is your absolute gold mine. That's your diamond. That's not your failure. Because remember, presence is the normal state. It's the natural state. To be a dominant masculine force in your life is the most normal thing in the world. So when you notice a place that you are falling away from that, or that feels inaccessible, that's your diamond. That's your access point, because there's something there that's going on inside of you that's pulling you out, and that's what you need to be able to be present with. So you use the capacity to be present to hold yourself as you sit with why it feels uncomfortable to be present. Again, you're building this capacity for yourself, and you're using it for yourself. And the whole world around you does their thing. You're not using this to get anything from anyone else. You're using this to build your own trust in yourself, your own ability to be with yourself. That's what is magnetic to other people. That's what's gravitational to other people. So as you work on these different practices that I'm going to share with you here, remember that the point of this is to notice when you fall out of it, when you fall away from it, and that is not the failure. That is the success, because you've identified a place where you are falling away from your own center. The first practice is breath discipline, mindfulness meditation, slow, deep breathing. You might call this breath work. You might call this a mindfulness meditation practice. And you can practice focusing on your breath. You learn to have control over your breath. You will learn to have control over your state. So yes, you can learn to calm your breath when you're stressed. You can learn to breathe deeply in uncomfortable situations. But the real point of this is to train yourself to maintain a regulated state. Not to get back to a regulated state, but to stay there. The next one is stillness. Train yourself in stillness. Sit absolutely motionless. Start with a minute. Then go to 2. See if you can make it up to 10. Sitting completely still, noticing the little itch, the little pain, and just being with it trains you to be regulated in discomfort. It will also show you how difficult it feels for you to let reality be there. Can you stay still when you have a little muscle soreness, or you have a little itch, or you want to wipe your nose? Another one that is profoundly powerful is eye contact in the mirror with yourself. This will feel really weird. But if you want to build the ability to hold eye contact, stand in front of a mirror and hold presence, focused presence with your own eyes in the mirror. Can you do that for 10 minutes? This builds capacity. It also shows you your discomfort. Train yourself to move deliberately. Move more slowly, more intentionally. As I mentioned earlier, think about what you're doing before you do it, so that when you reach out to grab something, you're grabbing it with intention. When you're using a tool, you're using it with intention. You are fully there with what you're doing. And practice making fewer gestures, speaking less. Physical training is also really powerful for this. Lifting weights. I know a lot of men like martial arts for this. Yoga. Anything that demands posture, control, focus, under stress and strain. Having the capacity to be fully present means being able to stay present when you are uncomfortable. So, can you do a 2-minute all-out run and stay present in your body, both during and after? Add stress to your life, add stress to your body, and practice staying in it. That will help you build and cultivate presence, and again, most importantly, it'll show you where you fall out of it. There's also a lot of value in training your mental and emotional discipline. And I don't mean discipline as force, I mean discipline as self-regulation. So learning to notice when you feel an emotional reaction happening and not acting on it right away, but listening to it, being present with it. Learning to create space between stimulus and response. I've heard this said as we always want to respond rather than react. You might want to count to 10. You might want to choose when something really activates you to wait until later today or tomorrow before you respond. And rather than defending or explaining yourself or rationalizing your behavior, instead choose to just observe your inner state. Allow the other person to think what they think and feel what they feel, rather than needing to defend yourself. Your capacity to pause before reacting is showing that you can be trusted with her surrender. And this is all about being able to live from your own center. This is about not letting her mood determine your mood. This is about not allowing her reactions to decide for you how you love her. This is leading from your state, not allowing her state to lead. And let's be real, this is tough. This is challenging for us as men, especially if you are in the category of the recovering nice guy. It's tough because the mass of her fear, of her reactivity, of her resistance feels very big, and we will tend to orbit that mass. And so this is about building our own strength so that our internal power, the inner dominance that you feel, is bigger than the mass of her fear and of her reactivity and of her need to be in control, so that she can start to come towards you. But as long as her fear is bigger than your strength, that is always going to be the dominant force in the connection between the two of you. So you are building up your internal strength, your ability to be solid regardless of circumstances, so that you can lead and be dominant from that place. And so she can submit to you from that place, where it's natural, rather than her having to force submission by denying her internal signals. And so I want to wrap up this episode by talking about how presence plays out inside of a power exchange, dominant submissive dynamic. Presence, not force, is the energy that will amplify the erotic charge and the depth of a dominant submissive dynamic. In a dominant submissive dynamic that's working on authentic desire, that's working from something real rather than something performative or fake or forced, her surrender can't just be mental. It can't just be a performance. It's physiological. It's based in the signals her body is giving to her. And the more grounded you are, the more safe her body is going to feel to open and respond. She's either going to be listening to what feels right to her and following it, or she's going to be trying to turn off her connection to her body, and her submission is going to come from a state of self-abandonment and people-pleasing rather than a state of authentic desire. Presence creates the circumstances within which she lets go. This means that we have to control the pace. It's going to take time for your presence as a dominant man to grow to the point that she starts to have her body's signals telling her that it feels best to let go. She's going to need to be able to slow down. You are going to need to slow down. The pace of which you are trying to create the dom-sub dynamic is going to need to slow down. Slowness is where suspense is created. It's where desire is felt. The less you rush, the more control you have. for real. Your energy can give direction and lead without needing words, without needing to tell her what to do. Think about just holding her eye contact. Women, if you're listening to this, feel this. A man who's holding eye contact with you, who takes one step closer, who's breathing deeply while he is looking deep, not just at you, but into you. She will feel you. If you can bring this kind of presence into your dominance. When you own the energy, she's hanging on your energy rather than you looking for her approval. You don't need to force anything because she's going to be drawn to you. It's your steadiness that allows her submission to become natural, where she doesn't need to manage the experience and try to protect herself, where she can really let go. And then you can start to deepen the intensity, lets you take her into new territory. Her wildest state will always have to come from being able to hear her body's signals, and for those signals to be telling her that she wants you. She wants to give herself to you. She wants to follow you. She wants to submit to you. And so there's her part in that is being able to hear her body's signals. That's why I tell submissive women you need to learn to feel your feelings. You need to learn to listen to the sensations of your body and honor them. And as dominant men, our role, what we have to offer, is to create a dominant presence for you to sink into. This is how you dominate, with presence rather than force. It is the way that it gets to be real, it's the way that it gets to feel real, and it is the way that it gets to build on itself over time. And again, men, if you want more of this, if you want a process you can follow, go into the show notes, find the link to my course, Becoming a Dominant Man, join in there. I do live streams every single Wednesday morning for the men who are a part of this course. It's free for life. When you join the course, you get access to these live streams every single Wednesday morning, along with the entire 20 hours of recorded video content and all of the practices and tools in that course. If you want to be able to lead her in the way that I'm talking about here today, Becoming a Dominant Man will show you the path for you. Thank you for tuning in, and I'll see you next week.